What just went down on WWE SmackDown? Backstage tension hit a whole new level as Roman Reigns finally came face to face with the Bloodline's newest addition, Hikuleo. Here's how it unfolded. Moments after the main event, cameras cut to the back. The energy was electric. Whispers flew. Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo were spotted just outside the locker room, deep in conversation, eyes locked, voices low. Then Hikuleo stepped in. Massive. Calm. Focused. The kind of presence that doesn't need to speak to make the room feel smaller. And then it happened. He met Roman Reigns. No words. No theatrics. Just a slow, sharp stare. The kind of tension you could slice with a blade. Hikuleo locked eyes with the tribal chief. Roman didn't flinch. He didn't move. He didn't even blink. It was power meeting power. Then, finally, Roman broke the silence. So, you're the one they brought in. Let's see if you deserve to carry the name. Hikuleo didn't hesitate. No smile. No showmanship. Just a cold, clear response. I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started. No handshake. No acceptance. Just a smirk from Roman, and a slow walk away. Unspoken war. Is this the beginning of another bloodline civil war? Or is Hikuleo about to earn his place the hard way? One thing's certain, SmackDown just got real. Like, comment, and subscribe for everything happening behind the scenes in WWE. Backstage wasn't supposed to be the show. Not that night. SmackDown had already lit the fuse. The crowd got their fireworks, the final bell rang, and most assumed the credits would roll. But WWE doesn't just end shows anymore, it launches stories. And on that Friday night, with the crowd still buzzing from the main event, cameras cut to a hallway that felt colder than it should have. The screen flickered. The audio dipped. And then we saw it, Solo Sikoa, speaking low with JC Mateo, glancing over his shoulder like something was coming. Something big. He wasn't wrong. Hikuleo stepped into frame. 6'8". Quiet as death. Shoulders squared like a battleship. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence filled the air like smoke before a fire. And suddenly, all of those rumors, those whispers of a new bloodline recruit, weren't rumors anymore. They were standing, breathing, and walking toward Roman Reigns. Then the shot widened. And there he was. The tribal chief. The head of the table. The Empire in a tailored black hoodie. Roman didn't move. He didn't speak. His eyes locked with Hikuleo's like two tectonic plates meeting under pressure. And just like that, WWE shifted. This wasn't just a face-off. This was power recognizing power, two men tied to a legacy that stretches across oceans, cultures, and generations. One built the dynasty. The other may be here to end it. No punches were thrown. No words wasted. Yet somehow, this 47-second backstage segment eclipsed everything that came before it. Because fans knew what they were witnessing, the moment when loyalty, legacy, and control all snapped into a high-stakes standoff. We've seen brawls. We've seen betrayals. But silence? Silence from Roman Reigns? That's when you know something's changed. Who are these men, really? To grasp the weight of this moment, you need to understand who Roman Reigns is, and who Hikuleo might become. Roman isn't just a champion. He's the undisputed ruler of the modern WWE landscape. For over 3 years, he's outlasted legends, crushed icons, and transformed the bloodline from a faction into a family-backed monarchy. He doesn't defend titles. He defends his throne. But Hikuleo isn't just muscle from New Japan. He's royalty too. Born into wrestling greatness, raised by warriors, and built for the kind of fight that doesn't end with a pinfall, it ends with a reckoning. So when they met in that narrow hallway, it wasn't just a meeting. It was a test. Not of strength. Not even of respect. It was a test of who will blink first when the world is watching. And neither did. Let's be clear, this moment doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's the latest, loudest beat in a storyline that has become wrestling's Shakespearean epic. The Bloodline saga has never just been about matches. It's about family, betrayal, control, and survival. Sami Zayn's rebellion broke the first fracture. The Usos split cracked it wide open. Solo Sikoa's quiet rebellion has turned into a cold, calculating shift. And now? Hikuleo walks in with the kind of presence that doesn't ask for a place at the table, it takes one. And for the first time in years, Roman Reigns looked like a man doing math. Not barking orders. Not making statements. But calculating what this newcomer meant to his future. To his crown. And maybe to his downfall. If you're thinking this is just another big guy joins the squad moment, you're not paying attention. WWE isn't building teams anymore. It's building thrones. And every throne needs a war to prove it deserves to exist. Hikuleo didn't say he was here to support Roman. He didn't say he was here to fall in line. He said, "I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started." Let that sink in. He's not joining the legacy. He's aiming to complete it. That means blood will be tested. Alliances will fracture. And a new fight for the soul of the bloodline may already be underway. What comes next? That's the question everyone's asking. Is this just a psychological power move from Roman? Is Hikuleo planning a coup? Are Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo part of the plan, or pawns in something much bigger? There's no clear answer yet. But here's what we do know, WWE didn't need to script a brawl. It didn't need fireworks. It didn't need words. All it needed was that stare. Because in WWE, sometimes the quietest scenes make the loudest echoes. And this echo? It might be the beginning of a new era. This story doesn't end here. In fact, this moment is just the ignition. Over the next few sections, we'll break down every piece of this confrontation, from the history of the bloodline to the rise of Hikuleo, the subtle clues in Roman's reaction, the backstage politics you didn't see, and what this all could mean for the future of WWE. But remember this, it came from two men, standing still. Locked in a war neither had to declare. Yet both are ready to finish. The bloodline didn't start with Roman Reigns. It didn't start with the Usos. It didn't even start in WWE. This dynasty traces back generations, to wild Samoan brawlers, tag team pioneers, and family patriarchs who weren't just building legacies, they were building the very foundation of professional wrestling's global evolution. To understand why the confrontation between Roman Reigns and Hikuleo matters, you have to understand what's been at stake all along. This isn't just about titles. It's about control. It's about blood. And right now, that blood is starting to boil. For over 3 years, the bloodline was untouchable. Roman Reigns sat at the head of the table like a king, flanked by warriors who followed out of loyalty, fear, or blood ties. Together, they dominated every division, every brand, every championship that mattered. But domination doesn't come without a cost. And lately, the cracks have widened into fractures. It started slowly. A missed tag. A subtle glance. A moment of hesitation during a promo. Then the betrayals came. First Sami Zayn, then Jimmy Uso. Jay followed. Even Paul Heyman started showing signs of discomfort. Solo Sikoa entered quietly, then violently. And now Hikuleo steps into the picture, not as a recruit, but as a potential replacement. This isn't just a story about who runs the bloodline. It's a story about whether the bloodline can survive at all. Roman Reigns wasn't always the tribal chief. He was once the quiet muscle of the Shield, the silent force flanked by louder voices. He wore the tactical vest, threw the Superman punch, and took the heat while Seth Rollins turned on him and Dean Ambrose self-destructed. When he emerged as the face of WWE, fans pushed back hard. He was too corporate. Too clean. Too forced. But something shifted when he returned from his 2020 hiatus. A pandemic-stricken WWE needed a strong hand, and Roman came back with a new presence. He aligned with Paul Heyman, not as a manager, but as an advisor. He didn't ask for the throne, he took it. And when he declared himself the head of the table, it wasn't a gimmick. It was a mission. He brought in the Usos. He turned them from tag team stars into strategic lieutenants. He gaslighted them into obedience, then turned them loose on anyone who threatened his rule. What followed was one of the most dominant runs in wrestling history. Roman unified the titles. The Usos ran the tag division. Solo Sikoa debuted from NXT as the silent enforcer. Every match, every segment, every stare down was calculated. Precise. Tactical. But absolute power never stays absolute. It was Sami Zayn who first turned the temperature. He joined as comic relief, a paranoid outsider trying to belong. He brought levity. Then he brought loyalty. Then he brought conscience. And when he turned on Roman, it was like watching a glass castle crack from the inside. Jey Uso followed. Not right away. But when he did, it wasn't with noise, it was with tears. The emotional core of the bloodline collapsed. Jimmy, the older brother, tried to hold the middle. He failed. Roman had kept them all close, not with love, but with control. And when that control loosened, everyone started to drift. Everyone except Solo. Solo Sikoa was different. Quiet. Methodical. Dead-eyed. He didn't flinch when ordered to take out Sami. He didn't hesitate when Roman needed someone to step in. But as time went on, the audience noticed something. Solo didn't speak much. But he watched everything. And now, when JC Mateo began showing up alongside him, it didn't feel random. It felt surgical. The addition of JC Mateo didn't just signal reinforcement, it signaled transformation. The bloodline wasn't a family anymore. It was becoming something colder. More clinical. Like Roman was assembling not relatives, but weapons. Then Hikuleo arrived. And everything felt different. Because Hikuleo isn't Roman's cousin. He's not another Uso. He's not someone who needs guidance or protection. He's a storm in human form. A former NJPW powerhouse with a deep family lineage of his own. Son of Haku. Brother to Tama Tonga. Raised in war. And he didn't walk into SmackDown asking where he fit in. He walked in like he already knew. That's why the silence between him and Roman mattered. Because in that moment, Roman wasn't just evaluating a new soldier. He was facing someone who didn't need his approval. And that has never been part of the bloodline formula. For years, Roman ruled by demanding loyalty. You either fell in line, or you were cast out. But Hikuleo didn't fall in line. He stood tall. Equal. Silent. Still. It wasn't a confrontation. It was a statement. Which begs the question, what exactly is the bloodline now? Is it Roman's creation? His kingdom? His legacy? Or has it grown into something larger than him? Something that no longer needs him to lead? The answer may come in parts. It may come in betrayal, in battle, or in breakdown. But make no mistake, the bloodline is no longer unified. It's not even fragmented. It's on edge. WWE is telling the kind of long-form story most promotions don't have the patience or the talent to tell. This is a drama that plays out in glances, in posture, in who stands behind whom. It's not just about the matches. It's about who shows up when the camera cuts backstage. That's what makes this moment so charged. Because when Hikuleo arrived, the bloodline story didn't reset. It evolved. It escalated. There's no question that Roman Reigns has built one of the most powerful empires in wrestling history. But empires fall. Not because of outside attacks, but because of inside tension. And that tension just got a name. It's 6'8". It moves with intent. And it doesn't blink. Right now, Roman is still the tribal chief. Still the head of the table. But titles like that come with weight. And eventually, someone always comes to lift that weight off your shoulders, by force. Hikuleo may not say much. But his presence says everything. The bloodline isn't safe. And Roman Reigns knows it. When Hikuleo walked onto SmackDown, he didn't announce himself with fireworks. He didn't scream into a microphone or throw his weight around like some debuting monster heel. He simply arrived, quiet, measured, and focused. And yet the moment he stepped into frame, you could feel the shift in the air. It wasn't his size, though he's physically imposing, towering at 6'8", with the build of a heavyweight and the gaze of a man who's seen more war than most. It wasn't just his reputation, either. It was his stillness. The same kind of stillness you notice in a predator who doesn't need to chase because it knows its prey will come to it. But to fully understand what made that moment so chilling, you need to know exactly who Hikuleo is, and why his presence backstage wasn't just a debut. It was a declaration. Hikuleo was born into chaos. He didn't choose this life. He was born into it, like so many others in the vast and complicated Anoa'i wrestling family tree, which stretches across companies, continents, and generations. But unlike Roman Reigns, the Usos, or even Solo Sikoa, Hikuleo was raised outside the WWE machine. His roots are deeper, rougher, less polished. And that might be what makes him the most dangerous addition to the bloodline yet. Raised by Haku, one of the most feared and respected men in professional wrestling history, Hikuleo learned early that respect isn't given, it's earned through pain. Haku wasn't a talker. He wasn't flashy. He was a destroyer. Stories of his real-life toughness still echo in locker rooms. He was the kind of man who could end a bar fight with a stare. And more than once did exactly that. Hikuleo inherited that aura. Not just physically, but spiritually. He's not out here trying to be the next Rock. He's not aiming for mainstream headlines or scripted catchphrases. He moves like someone who has nothing to prove but everything to finish. Before showing up in WWE, Hikuleo spent years cutting his teeth in New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's where the real work happens. The matches are longer, the hits are harder, and the storylines are told not with words, but with strikes. And JPW doesn't reward charisma, it rewards survival. If you make it through their gauntlet, you're forged in something colder and tougher than showbiz. Hikuleo did more than survive. He made people remember him. He started as a member of the Bullet Club, a faction built on rebellion, swagger, and betrayal. But unlike some of the more vocal members, Hikuleo rarely took center stage in a promo. He didn't need to. He let his actions speak. His powerbombs were sudden. His lariats were violent. His silences? They told better stories than most scripts. During his time in NJPW, he feuded with giants and veterans, including matches against Jay White, Kenta, and Tama Tonga, his own brother. And it was during those clashes with family that the wrestling world saw the full scope of what Hikuleo could be. Because he wasn't afraid to fight blood. He wasn't hesitant. He wasn't emotional. He did what had to be done. So when he appeared on SmackDown, standing toe-to-toe with Roman Reigns, it wasn't the start of something new. It was the continuation of something he's always done, stand where others bow. In many ways, Hikuleo is the antithesis of what WWE has traditionally promoted. He doesn't have the polished mic skills. He's not a weekly podcast guest or a walking brand. He's not social media friendly. He's blunt. Sometimes even awkward. But he is brutally real. He comes from a culture that values action over talk, honor over spectacle. He's been shaped by a career spent outside the bubble, where every match is a war, and nobody cares how many followers you have. That's what makes his confrontation with Roman Reigns so intriguing. Roman is a master of spectacle. He's a performer as much as a competitor. He understands the rhythm of promos, the weight of pauses, the choreography of dominance. Hikuleo doesn't play that game. He doesn't need to. He isn't here to take part in a storyline. He's here because he believes someone didn't finish the job, and now it's his turn to make sure it gets done. Whether that means replacing Roman or taking orders from no one, remains to be seen. But make no mistake, WWE didn't bring Hikuleo in to be another foot soldier. They brought in a rogue variable. A question mark with fists. And the timing is no accident. The bloodline is in flux. The internal structure is broken. Loyalty is fractured. Solo Sikoa is silent but clearly moving pieces behind the curtain. JC Mateo's allegiance isn't clear. And now Hikuleo appears, not asking to join, but daring anyone to tell him he can't. This is strategic chaos. And in chaos, the most dangerous player is the one who thrives in silence. Hikuleo didn't need to speak. Roman broke the silence first. That was telling. Even if Roman meant it as a test or a challenge, the fact that he spoke first meant he felt the shift. He felt the pressure. Hikuleo's response, cold, precise, wasn't a threat. It was a mission statement. He didn't posture. He didn't perform. He simply drew a line in the sand. I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started. That line changes everything. Because it rewrites Hikuleo's role before it's even defined. He's not applying for a spot at the table. He's not here for Roman's validation. He's here to tear the whole thing down, or reshape it in his own image. And that, more than anything, is what makes him dangerous. Not his size. Not his strength. His purpose. He's not just here to wrestle. He's here to finish something. The match was over. The final bell had sounded. The crowd was still buzzing, loud, alive. The announcers were doing their wrap-up, voices raised, energy pulsing. For most viewers, this was the part where you grab the remote, stretch your legs, maybe start scrolling. The action in the ring was done. But something didn't feel finished. The camera didn't cut to black. The music faded awkwardly. The ring lights dimmed, just slightly. And then, quietly, almost like an afterthought, it happened. The screen flickered. The angle shifted. And suddenly, we were backstage. SmackDown hadn't ended. It had paused. That's when we saw them, Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo. Standing off to the side. Whispering. Nothing dramatic. No shouting. No sudden moves. Just a private conversation that was somehow not private at all. Because every fan watching knew what it meant. Something was coming. Solo's face was expressionless. He rarely shows emotion on screen. That's part of what makes him so effective. He doesn't sell panic, fear, or doubt. But that night, something was different. His eyes weren't blank. They were scanning. Watching. Calculating. JC Mateo, the newest wild card in the Bloodline storyline, stood beside him, engaged but alert. Their voices were low, inaudible to the audience. But the body language said everything. Mateo leaned in. Solo stayed still. Neither looked comfortable. Then the camera angle widened, and the mood shifted completely. Hikuleo stepped into frame. He didn't storm in. He didn't march. He moved like someone who already belonged there. No music. No theme. No fanfare. Just silence and mass. His presence was immediate. The hallway felt smaller. Even through the screen, you could feel it. Like gravity changed direction. Everyone else looked smaller. Less important. Less certain. This wasn't a run-in. It wasn't a debut in the traditional sense. It was a mood change. And WWE knew it. For all the spectacle the company is known for, the pyro, the titantrons, the booming entrances, this was a masterclass in restraint. In letting the moment breathe. In understanding that sometimes, silence is the loudest thing in the room. There were no graphics. No commentary. Just the hallway, the walls, the tension. And then Roman Reigns appeared. He didn't barge in. He didn't strut. He was just there. Standing. Waiting. Like he knew Hikuleo was coming, and he'd chosen not to stop it. He was in control, or at least, that's what he wanted you to believe. What followed wasn't a promo. It wasn't even a conversation. It was a standoff. Roman's eyes locked on Hikuleo's. No words. No nods. Just a stare. The kind that happens between people who understand that language is sometimes unnecessary. And that's when you realized, this was the main event. Not the match that happened in the ring. Not the celebration or post-match interview. This hallway. This silence. This tension between two men who understood what was at stake without saying it out loud. Because this wasn't about who had the louder crowd reaction. It was about power. Control. Territory. It was a slow burn. And WWE let it burn. The camera didn't cut. It held on them. Let the silence stretch. And then Roman spoke. So, you're the one they brought in. His tone wasn't mocking. It wasn't impressed. It was flat. Measured. Like a man reading a threat assessment aloud. Let's see if you deserve to carry the name. That's when it all crystallized. Roman didn't see Hikuleo as an ally. He saw him as a test. A challenger. Maybe even a threat. And Hikuleo's response? No theatrics. No speech. I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started. It hit like a brick through a window. Because that line didn't just push back. It redefined his purpose. He wasn't there to prove himself. He wasn't there to earn Roman's trust. He was there to finish a job someone else didn't. That someone could be Jay. Could be Jimmy. Could be Solo. Could be Roman himself. We don't know. And that's what makes it perfect. Hikuleo didn't blink. He didn't move. And neither did Roman. The energy between them was thick, almost unbearable. Two men bound by legacy but separated by intent. Finally, Roman smirked. Not a warm smirk. Not a proud one. It was something colder. Like a man who knows a storm is coming but refuses to show fear. He turned. He walked away. No handshake. No warning. Just that smirk. And with that, the segment ended. No music. No narration. Just tension. It was a masterclass in minimalist storytelling. WWE used every trick in the book, and none of them were loud. No flash. No chaos. Just mood. Timing. Stillness. Because here's the truth, when wrestling is at its best, it's not just about athleticism or spectacle. It's about the spaces between action, the moments where characters aren't performing, they're simply being. And this was one of those moments. Fans watching at home knew they'd just witnessed something pivotal. Something that didn't scream for attention but earned it anyway. Social media lit up instantly. Not with jokes or memes, but with questions. Is Hikuleo joining the Bloodline? Is he replacing someone? Is he turning on Roman? Is this war? And most importantly, was this confrontation already preordained? Because when you think about it, everything feels a little too precise. The timing. The placement. The silence. Nothing about that segment felt improvised. It felt inevitable. Like all roads had been leading here. The match earlier that night may have drawn the crowd, But it was this moment, this quiet hallway, that changed the course of SmackDown. Possibly of WWE. And that's the brilliance of it. No titles were defended. No punches thrown. No finishers landed. But a shift happened. You could feel it. And now, every week forward becomes a question mark. He didn't kick down the door. He didn't shout over someone else's promo. He didn't arrive with a chair in hand or swinging fists. Hikuleo entered like a pressure front, shifting the atmosphere without saying a word. There's an art to silence in wrestling. In a world driven by big entrances, brash personalities, and catchphrases designed for t-shirts, silence is almost rebellious. It throws the audience off balance. It forces attention inward. It demands focus, not on words, but on presence. And Hikuleo's presence is undeniable. He entered the backstage frame not like someone new to the game but like someone returning to collect on a debt. Every step was calculated. Every breath controlled. He didn't scan the room or acknowledge the camera. He walked forward with the energy of a man who'd already decided how things would go. Whether anyone agreed didn't seem to matter. This is a man who grew up watching chaos and survived it. Who learned from Haku that strength isn't loud. It's constant. Consistent. Focused. And when Hikuleo moved through the hallway that night, it wasn't dramatic, it was inevitable. The camera didn't zoom in on him. It didn't need to. The lens respected his pace. There was a tension in the framing, tight enough to catch every nuance of his face, but wide enough to show the reactions of those around him. Solo Sikoa stiffened. JC Mateo stepped back half a foot. No one said anything. But the shift in posture said it all. This wasn't just a debut. It was a reckoning in slow motion. And WWE knew exactly what it was doing. Every choice in that moment was deliberate. The lighting wasn't bright. It was cold. Sterile. The hallway itself wasn't flashy, it was functional, plain, realistic. A reminder that some of the most important scenes don't happen under the lights. They happen in the places fans aren't supposed to see. The locker rooms. The corridors. The quiet places where power is tested, not with microphones, but with silence. And then, standing at the end of that hallway, was Roman Reigns. He didn't react with surprise. That would have cracked his image. He stood his ground, unbothered on the surface. But inside that stillness, there was tension. A kind of loaded stillness you only see when two apex predators cross paths in the same territory. Hikuleo didn't adjust his stride. He didn't nod. He didn't hesitate. He stopped exactly 5 feet from Roman and locked eyes. The room around them ceased to matter. Two men. Both shaped by legacy. Both used to being the largest presence in any space. And for a full 10 seconds, they didn't speak. That silence? It wasn't empty. It was dense. Every fan watching knew something huge was happening, even if they couldn't explain why. That's the magic of body language. That's the kind of storytelling you can't teach. You either have it, or you don't. And Hikuleo has it. He doesn't need to gesture to the belt or flex his shoulders. His height, his stillness, his unwavering stare, they speak volumes. And Roman, for all his power and pride, didn't try to dominate that silence. He didn't talk over it. He absorbed it. Let it settle. Because in that moment, Roman Reigns, the longest reigning champion in modern WWE history, wasn't the only alpha in the building. Hikuleo's calm is not the calm of submission. It's the calm before eruption. The kind of calm you find in someone who's done the math. Someone who knows what they're about to do and has already made peace with the fallout. That makes him dangerous. Because men who seek power are predictable. They need validation. Applause. Recognition. Hikuleo doesn't. He didn't demand a place in the bloodline. He didn't ask for an opportunity. He didn't talk about dreams or destiny. He simply showed up, and made everyone else in that hallway feel smaller just by being there. This wasn't just good booking. It was narrative chess. Because if Roman Reigns is the king, then Hikuleo is the unknown piece, the one that doesn't move like anything else on the board. He doesn't perform like a heel. He doesn't work like a face. He's not here to fit a mold. He's here to dismantle it. And that terrifies people. Including, maybe, Roman. When Roman finally broke the silence with his line, "So, you're the one they brought in. Let's see if you deserve to carry the name," it was as much a shield as it was a sword. He was trying to reclaim control. To remind everyone watching that he still holds the crown. Still dictates the hierarchy. But Hikuleo didn't blink. Didn't shift weight. Didn't grin. His answer was mechanical. Surgical. "I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started." No hyperbole. No drama. Just a sentence that slammed a hammer into the Bloodline narrative. Because now we don't know what Hikuleo's role is, and that's the point. He's not just a new soldier. He might be the new war. His calm isn't submission. It's preparation. And if the look in his eyes meant anything that night, it's this: he's not backing down. Not waiting his turn. Not playing Roman's game. He's playing his own. No commentary. No entrance music. No crowd reaction to cushion the moment. Just a hallway, two men, and a stare that froze the air. What happened between Roman Reigns and Hikuleo wasn't a promo setup, it was a confrontation built entirely on tension. Pure, boiling, breathless tension. When people look back at this moment months from now, maybe even years, they won't remember any flashy line or shocking betrayal. They'll remember that stare. The sheer pressure of it. Because when Roman Reigns and Hikuleo stood 5 feet apart and locked eyes, it felt like something was going to break. A man. A bond. Maybe the bloodline itself. Stare-downs in wrestling are nothing new. Every week brings a face-off. Two stars nose to nose, flexing, yelling, faking heat. But this wasn't that. This was controlled. Slow. Calculated. Both men did something that most can't: they held silence. And not just held it, weaponized it. Roman has mastered this over the years. He understands body language like a general understands war maps. He knows when to lean forward, when to smirk, when to say nothing. Since taking the tribal chief role, he's shifted from a scripted powerhouse to an emotional architect. He doesn't just intimidate. He unnerves. And yet, for the first time in a long time, someone met that energy and didn't flinch. Hikuleo didn't look away. He didn't posture. He didn't even blink. The way he stared back wasn't confrontational in the way most new arrivals try to be. It wasn't a threat. It was inevitability. Like a man who doesn't need to swing a sword because he knows the kingdom is already crumbling. That's what made it so sharp. Let's unpack the layers of this moment. First, posture. Roman stood loose but commanding. His shoulders weren't tense. His arms at his sides. But there was steel behind the calm. He didn't lean forward. He didn't widen his stance. He stood with the confidence of someone used to being the biggest presence in every room. That posture said, "I've already won." But Hikuleo didn't meet arrogance with submission. He met it with neutrality. He stood tall, taller than Roman, notably, and he didn't shift his feet. His shoulders were square. His breathing was controlled. Not shallow, not deep. Just deliberate. His arms were loose but loaded, like someone capable of explosive action but uninterested in performance. There's a word for this in combat training: trigger calm. It's the kind of composure you see in someone who's been trained to eliminate distraction. To tune out noise, ego, and emotion in favor of precise action. And that's what made this moment so unnerving. Roman postured like a king. Hikuleo stood like a threat trained to unmake kings. Then, eye contact. This is where most stare-downs crumble. One man will blink. Glance to the side. Add a smirk too early. Or worse, start talking to kill the awkwardness. But neither of them did. Roman's eyes were probing. Searching. Measuring. Like he was trying to read Hikuleo the way he reads his own family, looking for weakness, looking for doubt. Roman has always been good at diagnosing his opponents through subtle facial cues. That's how he broke Sami. That's how he turned Jay. That's how he controls Solo. But with Hikuleo, there was nothing to read. His face was steel. No squinting. No frown. No smirk. Just that unshakable look. Not aggressive. Not passive. Just undeniable. And that's when the emotional balance shifted. Roman realized he wasn't in complete control. He could feel it. And we could see it. He was facing someone who didn't fear him. Who didn't need him. Who couldn't be bent by guilt or ego or tribal hierarchy. That's when the stare turned into something deeper. A test. Roman has stared down everyone. Lesnar. Cena. Edge. Owens. Cody. But in every one of those moments, the battle was based on legacy or skill or belts. This moment wasn't about gold. It was about entitlement. Who has the right to lead? To inherit the name? To dictate the next era? Roman's greatest weapon is that he convinces others to need him. The Usos needed him to feel important. Sami needed to belong. Solo needed direction. Even Heyman needed protection. But Hikuleo stood there needing nothing. That stripped away Roman's power. Even if only for a second. And Roman felt it. That's why he spoke first. So, you're the one they brought in. A line delivered not with sarcasm or hostility, but with quiet judgment. It was loaded, not with surprise, but challenge. He wasn't asking a question. He was making a statement. A tribal one. A coded one. He was essentially saying, you've been summoned into this bloodline. You think you belong here? Prove it. And Hikuleo? He didn't blink. Didn't bristle. He replied, I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started. Not loud. Not theatrical. Just surgical. And that sentence broke the moment wide open. Because with it, Hikuleo dismissed Roman's power structure. Refused the premise that he needed approval. And more importantly, he named the mission. He's not here to rise. He's here to close. But what is he finishing? Is he referring to the original purpose of the bloodline, domination, unity, tribal pride? Or is he referring to the destruction that Jay started when he walked out? Maybe it goes back even further. Maybe to something Roman did that was never truly resolved. Maybe the fracture in the family's foundation has been quietly building, and Hikuleo is here as judgment. Not a challenger. Not a betrayer. A closer. That changes everything. Because most opponents come at Roman with ambition. But Hikuleo came at him with intent. When Roman smirked and walked away, it wasn't a dismissal. It was an escape. Because in that moment, for the first time in this entire storyline, Roman didn't win the moment. He didn't dominate it. He didn't command it. He absorbed it. He processed it. And then he left. That smirk wasn't confidence. It was survival. A tactical smile. The kind a chess player gives when they recognize the opponent just moved a piece they didn't see coming. Because here's the truth, Roman didn't have a counter. There was no promo to deliver. No slap to escalate. No beatdown to send a message. He was outmatched, not physically, but psychically. Because Hikuleo didn't try to beat Roman at his own game. He walked into the room and flipped the board. That's why the stare down mattered so much. That's why fans are still talking about it. It wasn't about what was said. It was about who held their power without needing to raise their voice. Roman Reigns has ruled WWE with charisma, calculation, and control. But all three of those tools depend on the other person playing along. Hikuleo didn't. He didn't respond with energy. He responded with clarity. And now Roman knows, this isn't just another phase of the Bloodline saga. This is a reckoning. A silent one. And the only thing louder than that silence is what's coming next. I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started. One sentence. 15 words. But in the world of wrestling, where entire careers are built on catchphrases and promos, this wasn't a promo. It was a thunderclap. Quiet. Deadly. Final. This wasn't just a response to Roman Reigns. This was a challenge to everything Roman has built. It questioned the structure, the loyalty, the throne. And it came from a man who hadn't earned his stripes in WWE's polished, camera-perfect world. It came from someone forged in another system. A harder system. One that doesn't hand out titles or roles, you take them. And Hikuleo just took the moment. The room, though silent, reacted. Not with gasps or physical movement, but with that unmistakable shift in energy. When someone says something so clear, so undeniable, that no one else knows what to do with it. That's what real power sounds like, not loud, but inevitable. Let's break down the line piece by piece. I'm not here to follow. Those 5 words alone were a direct shot at the very DNA of the Bloodline. Roman Reigns has ruled not just with force, but with structure. A hierarchy. There's the tribal chief, then the ones who serve, obey, or are exiled. It's a pyramid with one man on top, and everyone else kept in line below. So when Hikuleo said he's not here to follow, he wasn't just rejecting Roman. He was rejecting the entire pyramid. And he didn't do it with defiance. He did it with clarity. No emotion. No edge. Just fact. That makes it more powerful. Because anger is personal. Clarity is final. Then came the second half of the sentence. I'm here to finish what they started. No names. No specifics. Just wait. Immediately, fans and analysts began asking, who is they? The Usos? Sami Zayn? The original version of the Bloodline that fell apart piece by piece? Or is they something deeper? Something older? A nod to the legacy of those before Roman? To a family mission corrupted by ego? It's ambiguous. And that ambiguity makes the line cut deeper. Roman built the Bloodline as a means to an end. To protect his title. To project power. But Hikuleo's line suggests that something more sacred, more authentic, was left unfinished. That Roman didn't complete the legacy, he hijacked it. This is what shook the room. Because now the audience isn't just watching another faction develop. They're witnessing a family legacy being reinterpreted in real time. It's no longer about whether Roman is strong enough to lead. It's about whether he was ever meant to. That's what this moment did. With just one sentence, Hikuleo redefined the terms of engagement. He stepped into the narrative not as a new soldier, not even as a new king, but as the one holding the final blueprint. The one holding the key to the real endgame. And Roman had no comeback. He didn't mock it. He didn't question it. He didn't counter. He smirked. He walked. And in that walk was everything. A quiet admission that, for once, he didn't control the tempo. He didn't own the narrative. He was reacting, not dictating. Because in wrestling, silence after a statement is sometimes louder than a crowd pop. The fact that Roman left without asserting dominance told the locker room, the audience, and the entire WWE universe that this moment mattered. That Hikuleo was not just some new addition to the roster. He was something more. He was here for the end. Not the title. Not the faction. The end. And now everyone, Roman included, is going to have to decide what that end looks like. It was subtle. You might have missed it if you blinked. No theatrics, no drama. Just the corner of Roman Reigns' mouth lifting, barely, into a half-smile before he turned and walked away. To some, it looked like indifference. A show of dominance. The classic Roman move, cool, smug, in control. But if you've followed the tribal chief long enough, you know better. Roman's smirk isn't just facial expression. It's communication. It's code. And that particular smirk wasn't one of triumph. It was something more complex. More calculated. And maybe, more defensive. Because the moment before that smirk, Roman had just heard something he didn't expect. A line that cracked his aura, even if just for a split second. I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started. Roman didn't answer. He didn't step forward. He didn't assert his dominance. He didn't even issue a threat. He gave that smirk, and walked away. But what did that smirk really mean? Let's break it down, frame by frame, gesture by gesture. Because within that small movement lies the clearest evidence yet that Roman knows he's not untouchable anymore. Roman Reigns is not a man who reacts casually. Every part of his persona is composed. His movements are methodical. His promos are measured. His dominance isn't just physical, it's psychological. He breaks you before he beats you. He gets in your head and bends you into obedience long before the bell rings. So, when he smirked at Hikuleo, it wasn't out of amusement. It was strategy. A mask. A defensive reflex, not a statement of power. Because make no mistake, what Hikuleo said wasn't just a challenge. It was a removal of Roman's authority. It was a sentence that positioned Hikuleo not beneath Roman, not opposite Roman, but beyond him. And in response, Roman smirked. But this wasn't the confident grin we've seen before, the smirk after pinning Daniel Bryan, the smirk during his confrontations with Cody Rhodes, the smirk that followed dismantling the Usos one by one. This was thinner. Colder. Almost reluctant. Because Hikuleo hadn't attacked him. He hadn't screamed or demanded a title shot. He hadn't broken protocol. He had simply made Roman obsolete in one sentence. And that's the part Roman couldn't process publicly. A man who lives off control had just been told, in front of the locker room, the cameras, the fans, that his leadership is unnecessary. So he smiled. Because that's what you do when you're cornered and still want to look like the one calling the shots. In that moment, Roman did what many powerful men do when they lose control in public, he masked it with sarcasm. A smirk that said, "You don't scare me," even as the shift in energy betrayed that exact fear. Let's rewind to the psychology here. Roman has built the bloodline on loyalty and fear. Not fear of violence, but fear of being exiled. The idea that if you're not in his circle, you're nothing. That if you go against him, you don't just lose your spot, you lose your family. Every challenge he's faced, Sami, Jay, Cody, has relied on emotional investment. He breaks them by making them question themselves. But Hikuleo didn't flinch. He didn't show fear. He didn't even seem to care whether Roman accepted his presence or not. That's unfamiliar territory for Roman. So he smirked. A subtle, calculated move designed to send a message, you don't matter. I'm unbothered. But that only works if the smirk lands with authority. In this case, it didn't. Because the smirk wasn't followed by anything. No line. No warning. No action. Just silence. Then he turned and walked. And that's where things really broke from the usual Roman Reigns playbook. Roman never leaves second. He finishes conversations. He dominates the narrative. But this time, after the smirk, he exited. No comeback. No confrontation. That walk said more than any promo could have. Because in the WWE storytelling language, walking away first, especially without control, is a white flag. It's not submission, but it's certainly not conquest. Now, let's talk symbolism. The Bloodline story is built on 3 pillars: hierarchy, loyalty, and control. Roman sits at the top. He decides who enters, who leaves, who rises, and who falls. He assigns roles. He plays chess with real people. He tells Solo when to strike. He manipulates Jay's emotions. He silences Jimmy with guilt. But Hikuleo came in with no desire to play. No attempt to earn position. No concern for family loyalty. He came to finish something. That immediately strips Roman of 2 pillars, loyalty and control. All that's left is hierarchy. And hierarchy only matters if the others recognize it. Hikuleo didn't. So Roman smirked. Because that's all he had left. It was the same kind of smirk a king gives when someone reminds him that the throne he sits on was stolen from a better man. Not angry. Not scared. Just momentarily exposed. And make no mistake, fans noticed. Social media lit up immediately after the segment aired. Not just about Hikuleo's line, but about Roman's smirk. Was he hiding fear? Was he showing respect? Was he trying to downplay a threat? Or was he buying time? Because that's the most likely answer. Roman's greatest strength isn't brutality, it's adaptability. He doesn't panic. He recalibrates. He learns. When faced with someone who won't be manipulated, Roman doesn't lash out, he studies them. So yes, the smirk was a defense mechanism. But it was also an analysis. Roman was already thinking 10 moves ahead. Not because he won the moment, but because he lost it. And when Roman loses a moment, he doesn't retaliate immediately. He stalks. He plans. That smirk was Roman's pause button. His way of saying, okay. I see what this is. I'm not ready yet, but I will be. That means Hikuleo didn't just deliver a message. He triggered a new phase of Roman Reigns. The cold, calculating strategist. And that's when things get dangerous. Because now Roman won't just fight to maintain power. He'll fight to reclaim something that was never supposed to be questioned, his right to lead. The smirk wasn't the end. It was the warning. The smirk said, this isn't over. But behind the smirk? Roman might be wondering whether he's already too late. The Bloodline isn't just a faction anymore, it's a living, shifting narrative that has redefined how WWE tells stories. It's emotional. It's strategic. It's violent. It's family. And right now, it's cracking. Again. The first fracture was loud. Public. Messy. Sami Zayn's betrayal at Royal Rumble 2023 was a moment that cracked the Roman Reigns dynasty open. That night, Sami's steel chair strike didn't just hit Roman's back. It hit the foundation of the entire group. It exposed doubt. Humanity. Fragility. Then came the Usos. What was once Roman's most loyal tag team became his biggest headache. Jimmy rebelled. Jay hesitated, then followed. There were fights, tears, dramatic departures, and chilling beatdowns. The family ties that Roman used as leverage began to backfire. Emotions bled through promos. You could feel real history behind every super kick, every stare down. But Roman survived it. He did what kings do. He replaced weakness with control. He brought in Solo Sikoa. He refortified his command. By late 2023, the Bloodline was quiet again. Reunified. Streamlined. The Usos were gone. Sami was forgotten. It was just Roman, Solo, and the increasingly mysterious JC Mateo. Smaller. Tighter. More efficient. Or so it seemed. Because now, in 2025, that cold calm feels like a countdown. Enter Hikuleo. His arrival didn't cause chaos, it clarified it. He didn't bring tension. He revealed that it was already there. With one sentence, "I'm not here to follow. I'm here to finish what they started." He dropped a match on oil Roman didn't even realize was leaking. So now, the question on every fan's mind isn't just who's in charge. It's, are we watching Bloodline Civil War II in slow motion? To answer that, we need to revisit the core structure of the Bloodline, and how it's evolved. Roman Reigns isn't just the face of the Bloodline. He's its architect. He reshaped family ties into a corporate hierarchy. He weaponized loyalty. Everyone had a role. Jay was the right hand. Jimmy was the balance. Sammy was the humor turned heartbreak. Solo became the silence, the calm executioner. But that model only works if every cog stays in place. Right now, the gears are grinding. Let's start with Solo Sikoa. Solo is a mystery. He speaks with his actions. He obeys without fanfare. But lately, he's been too quiet. Too composed. Even as Roman exerts dominance, Solo stands a little straighter. He watches a little longer. He's not flinching anymore. And then there's JC Mateo. A new player, relatively untested. He doesn't say much, but he's always nearby. Always watching. He's either the most loyal member of this new bloodline, or the one gathering the most intel for a silent coup. Now add Hikuleo to the mix. A man who doesn't recognize Roman's system. A man who answers to no one. A man who walked into the most powerful faction in wrestling and didn't ask for permission to speak. That alone is a threat. But pair it with his line, "I'm here to finish what they started," and you begin to realize, this might be the beginning of something much bigger. So let's consider the possibilities. Possibility 1, Hikuleo is here to dismantle Roman from the inside. That would make this a cold, methodical invasion. Think Shield-style disruption, only slower. Strategic. Not with surprise attacks, but with subtle shifts in power. Solo begins siding with Hikuleo in decisions. JC Mateo starts taking orders from someone else. Roman finds himself slowly being surrounded by loyalty that's no longer loyal to him. This isn't far-fetched. We've seen Roman paranoid before. Remember how he questioned Jay's commitment? How he treated Sammy like a pet until he snapped. Roman doesn't handle doubt well. And Hikuleo's presence alone is doubt incarnate. Possibility 2. This is a power transition. Hikuleo might not be here to destroy the bloodline, he might be here to inherit it. That sentence, "finish what they started," could imply that Roman was just a chapter. Not the whole book. Maybe the real legacy lies with someone like Hikuleo, who represents a different era, a different code. In that case, Solo becomes the kingmaker. His allegiance determines whether Roman continues his reign or hands over the keys. And from what we've seen, Solo isn't swayed by emotion. He's strategic. If he sees Roman faltering and Hikuleo rising, he'll move like a tactician, not a brother. Possibility 3, we're watching an inevitable implosion. This theory suggests there's no plan. No grand takeover. Just a slow crumble. Like empires that rot from within. Roman is overextended. His allies don't trust each other. New players like Hikuleo and JC Mateo don't share the same bloodline roots. Eventually, suspicion turns to betrayal. Words turn to fists. And the bloodline collapses not because of outside forces, but because of internal entropy. Whichever route WWE takes, one thing is clear, the unity is over. The tension is already showing in micro-behaviors. Roman looking over his shoulder more than usual. Solo not jumping into action when prompted. JC Mateo playing both sides in every segment. Hikuleo saying everything by saying almost nothing at all. The bloodline was always meant to be temporary. No faction lasts forever. But this one felt different. It felt like a dynasty. It felt like something unbreakable. And maybe that's the trap. Because dynasties don't just fall. They collapse under the weight of their own mythology. Roman built a house of gold, but it was always built on pressure. He demanded perfection. Loyalty. Silence. He ruled not just with fear, but with a sense of inevitability. No one could beat him. No one could question him. Until now. Hikuleo questioned him without raising his voice. And that's the most dangerous kind of threat. Because you can fight a rebellion. But you can't fight a shift in belief. When your own people stop believing in your vision, when they begin to imagine a future without you, that's when empires dissolve. So yes, this might be the beginning of Bloodline split, round 2. But this time, it won't be emotional like the first one. It'll be colder. Smarter. More surgical. Because now, the players aren't conflicted family members torn between love and control. They're tacticians. And one of them, Hikuleo, might be carrying the final act.